Today on La Mom Gastronome, I'm going to show you how to make my own little hybrid creation called the Churrsants. And what it is it's made from pastry dough like a croissant, but it is made to be similar to a churro, and it is also the flavors and cinnamon and everything are made to be flavored just like a churro, but baked in the oven. And it's also done with a chocolate sauce that has espresso and cinnamon in it, which is traditional in Hispanic countries to go along with the churro as a dipping sauce. So I'm going to show you how to do both of those things. This is a really addictive little treat. You're going to love it. So first thing you want to do, you want to make sure that you've dusted your board before you put your puff pastry dough down. And that's what I'm doing here. And you want it thawed enough to be pliable, but not too thawed, or it starts to get really difficult to handle. And frankly, this one is getting borderline, but I think it's just right. It's definitely pliable, but it's not sticky yet. It's still fairly firm. And the first thing you want to do then, once you get it laid down, is you want to press together those seams and kind of strengthen them up a little bit, because they will make your churros, your Churrsants rather, break apart when you go to cut them and shape them in a little bit. So you want to make sure you've got those seams taken care of, okay? Press it out even. Then you're going to take about a tablespoon or so of butter, and I put a half a teaspoon of vanilla in there, and you whip it all together till it's nice and soft, and you're going to use that to spread onto the puff pastry. Okay, now try not to get it too terribly thick on there, because the puff pastry dough does have a lot of its own butter in it. So you don't need a thick coating, but you do want to get enough of it on there to help the cinnamon and sugar mixture to stick, and also to get a little bit of that vanilla flavor in there as well. So we're going to just finish spreading the butter around on the puff pastry dough. And these go together pretty quickly. They're a little bit fiddly once you get them on the pan and you're kind of twisting them and shaping them. But it's a pretty simple recipe that goes together pretty quickly. And I think you'll be really pleased with the outcome. They're really, really delicious. Frankly, the chocolate dipping sauce is my favorite part. It is so good. I think you're going to really enjoy that. Okay, so now we have the dough spread with the vanilla butter. Next, you're going to take about a quarter cup of sugar, and you're going to put into that about a tablespoon of cinnamon. Okay. And then my added little secret ingredient, I like to take a really good quality hot chocolate mix, whichever kind you like, and I put about a rounded teaspoon of that in here as well. Okay, it adds a really nice little background note to the mixture. But don't do just unsweetened cocoa, because that's a little bit too bitter and a little bit too overpowering to these other flavors. So just use your favorite, nice quality hot cocoa mix. And this is what you should end up with. It should look kind of like this. Pretty even mixture of the sugar with the cinnamon and cocoa. It's fairly brown in color like that, okay? And then you do a light dusting over the dough, like such, as evenly as you can. It does not have to be, perfect, but just as evenly as you can get it. Okay, get a little bit more on this end here. There we go. Okay, then what you want to do is take a knife. Excuse me while I reach over and grab one here. And you're going to cut it in half. You can go lengthwise or horizontal, it doesn't matter, but you're going to take your square and you're going to cut it in half. Okay? Then each half, you're going to start cutting it in about inch wide or so little strips like this. Okay? And as you do that, fold those little strips in half, like such, and place them onto a baking sheet. I have a Silpat lined baking sheet, which I've also put foil underneath because sometimes in the oven the sugar can bake up really, really dark. And if there's any of it around the edges of your mat, it can make it really hard to clean up. So I just like to play it safe and put foil underneath. So I'm going to continue to cut my inch or so little strips, folding them over, placing them on the baking sheet. I'm going to finish this up, and then I'm going to show you the step that comes next, right before they go into the oven. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the pan with the little Churrsants on it. We're going to give them a light spray with some butter spray, or any cooking spray is fine, but butter spray is preferable. Just real light, you don't want to soak them. And then we're going to give them another little dusting of the cinnamon sugar, like such. This time it's just a little dusting. It doesn't have to be on real thick, just a light little coating for them to bake up in. Okay, that's good. And then you just take each one and you just give it a little twist like such. Just like that. Just a couple, 2 or 3 twists each one. And I'm going to continue to do that with them all. And then they go in the oven. And these will bake a little bit longer than a lot of things that are made with puff pastry dough. And that's because we want them to turn a nice dark brown color and be just a little bit crisper on the outside than what you would normally be looking for, because we're trying to kind of mimic that deep fried texture of a traditional churro. So we don't want them overdone, but we definitely want them to have a nice little crisp to them and a nice dark golden brown color. So you can kind of see how these are looking now. You know, like I said, 2 or 3 twists on each one is just right. And then we are going to stick them in a preheated 400-degree oven. And I'm going to start with 20 minutes because I want to see what they look like at that point. But chances are they're going to go a full 25 to get just the right color to them. So here we go. Okay, so when we come back, I'm going to show you how to do the chocolate dipping sauce that goes with these, and we'll put it all together and I'll show you what the finished product looks like. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you is how to do the chocolate sauce that you serve along with the Churrsants. And this is a really delicious, really easy, and it's basically just a few ingredients. So the first thing you want to do is you take a bag of dark melting wafers, any brand. I like to use Ghirardelli just because they're really rich and I love the flavor, but really any dark melting wafers is fine. But you do want dark because you do want that slightly bittersweet, rich flavor of the dark chocolate. So those go in. One thing I need to grab off camera here is you also need espresso powder, and you will put in 1 teaspoon of espresso powder. So 1 teaspoon of espresso powder. You put in a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Right in there. And then you take your heavy cream and you're adding about a 1/2 cup of heavy cream into the mixture. And you just let this all just melt and come together. And it'll be just a few minutes while we kind of push that around and let that start melting. Okay. Okay, you can see how it's all starting to kind of melt together. You can see the little flecks of chocolate all around in the cream. It's all starting to come together. At this point, you're literally talking, you know, a couple of minutes, and it's going to all just melt right together, and you're going to have this delicious chocolate sauce. I'm on a medium-high heat right now. You don't want it to be too hot because you're just letting the steam from the water underneath melt the chocolate. And if you get it too hot, you're going to get your chocolate kind of burned on the bottom. It's going to stick to the bowl, and that you don't want that. So once the bowl gets hot and things start to melt, just a medium-high heat is plenty. As you can see, it's melting beautifully smooth. And once you get it about probably 3/4 of the way melted, see how shiny and gorgeous that is? Once you get it melted about 3/4 of the way, then you can just take it right off the burner because the bowl is hot enough and the mixture is hot enough that it can just do the rest of the work on its own. So that's kind of where we're at right now. See there? I'm going to go ahead and remove it from the pan and just go ahead and keep stirring until it's all just mixed and combined. There, it's all kind of coming together. Now it's just pretty much done right there. So what you get is this very smooth, creamy, shiny little chocolate sauce that is just divine with the flavors in the churro. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and decant this into a separate bowl and get it ready to serve, and in a few more minutes our churrsants will be done baking and will be set. Okay, the churros have just come out of the oven, and as you can see, they are a nice dark golden brown. And what we're going to do next is we're going to, while they're hot, and you do want to do this while they're hot, is take the cinnamon sugar and sprinkle over the top one last time, because when they are still hot, then the sugar will stick to them, and that's what you want. So we're going to just dust some sugar over the top, and then we're going to plate them over here with the chocolate sauce. And then what you have is the finished churrsants with chocolate sauce. And this is what they look like.